Hello and welcome to this video and to February's book review, which I am trying to film very quickly while my child has a nap. I also obviously gave birth in February. My brain is pretty scrambled at the moment due to her being 3 weeks old and sleep and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping I actually remember these books to be able to talk to you about them. But over the month I read 5 books. 4 of those were before she was born, 1 after, and I thought we would get into it quickly. So the first book I read was Hook, Line and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This is the sequel to It Happened One Summer. That's what it's called, isn't it? Yeah. And this is following the sister of our main female protagonist in that book. So we're following Hannah and Fox. Fox is also the best friend of our male protagonist in that first book. Across the month, or at least the beginning part of the month, I was doing a random number generator across my whole TBR, so including Kindle books, and it chose this, and actually it chose pretty much all physical books, but we'll get into that as we go through as well. So this one is a friends to lovers romance. Hannah is in LA, she is part of a film crew, but she has been texting Fox since the events of It Happened One Summer. She is hoping to get back to the little town, which I can't remember what it's called. So she manages to get the film that she's working on to be, the location to be that town, which means that she then has to stay in Fox's spare room because her sister's got her in-laws in, so doesn't have the room to house her. Basically that's why she ends up there. This I would say probably isn't quite as steamy as the first one, but because we already know the characters and we've already had a bit of their sort of romance told to us in that first book, there's not as much faff in getting into them and their sort of sexual and romantic tension and things like that. We don't have to have a lot of build up to it, so straight from the off you feel that tension going through, and it is written very well, which compared to the first, because you have to build the characters, the scenery, the etc etc, you don't quite get that in the first book. So the reason why Hannah and Fox can't be together, she doesn't want to be another notch on his bedpost. Essentially he's got a bit of a reputation for that, and she is obviously his best friend's wife's sister, so has been asked or persuaded not to go there by them. So that's why they can't be together. I do like that concept and the whole sort of friends to lovers aspect of it. I do just wish they got over it a bit quicker. It's quite a big book to have so many occurrences of them almost getting together and then not doing so. I would say it does help to have read the first book first, because as I said, you do meet these characters in that book and their relationship starts to develop in that book, so it does help. I would have liked there to be a bit more of Piper and Brendan in that, so that's our main protagonist from the first book. They do appear but not very often, and I think it would have just been fun to revisit them a bit more in this one as well. Lastly, Hannah has an analogy about being a leading lady in her own life, and she always feels like she's the supporting character and stuff, which I get the analogy, but she uses it far too often that it just sort of got on my nerves after a while. But on the whole I did enjoy this book and I gave it 4 stars, I believe. So that's Hook, Line and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. After that I continued trying to do my sort of read one, reread one, so I moved on to Sleepovers by Jacqueline Wilson. This is a obviously middle grade-y children's book, following the group of 5 friends as they each have a sleepover for their birthday. Daisy is the new girl, so she's being brought into this group, which isn't going down so well with some of the members of it, and she is also nervous about having her own sleepover as she has a sister with additional needs. I can't quite remember what condition her sister has, but she's non-verbal and that kind of thing. This was one I really enjoyed as a child, so it did have that nostalgia part for me, and it does look a lot at relationships, and certainly female relationships, girl relationships at that age. I distinctly remember some of the ups and downs of friendships at that age as well. One thing I didn't expect was that Jacqueline Wilson seemed to have this obsession with food. So the middle character here is called Bella, and she is constantly writing about how Bella just eats everything and how she's much bigger than the rest of them and that kind of stuff, and I don't know, it just didn't sit very well in today's day and age. This was originally published, I mean, if I was a kid when this came out, it can't have been, it's got to be the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, 2001. So I will be keeping this one because, again, I do think it's good enough for my daughter to read eventually if she wants to, because I do think it will expose her to differences, I guess, and certainly of having like a disabled sibling. I would say it's a bit short to completely go into that topic, but when we read it I will be commenting about how it's not right to talk about people's weight and things in the way that it is in this book. So overall, did enjoy it, probably gave this one 3 stars, and that was Sleepovers by Jacqueline Wilson. The random number generator then picked me another physical book, which surprised me, and it was Together Again by Millie Johnson. If you've been with me for a while, then you'll know that Millie Johnson is one of my favourite authors. I've read everything I think that she's come out with, although I think she's just released a new book, so I don't have that one yet. And this was the one that I've had on my TBR for a little while and was published in 2022, so I don't think she actually released a book last year, which is surprising. And I have to say this is my least favourite Millie Johnson book, which is sad to say. I feel like the last couple, or at least this one and the one before, I haven't enjoyed as much because she hasn't been focusing quite on the fluffy romance as she did in the past. This is following 3 sisters who are, well, 2 of them are still talking but not really, and one of them left when she was 16 and they haven't heard from her since. So when their mum dies, they end up all back together in their family home, and they're going through the different things, life, and uncovering some secrets and things that their mum had, and obviously why the youngest left and all of that kind of stuff. The start of this I really didn't get on with, but it did get better as we went through it, which I was glad of. I still do really like Millie Johnson's writing, and there was a bit of romance in this, but I much prefer the older stuff where it is solely a romance. You know what you're getting with it, rather than her trying to tackle some slightly more serious topics, which she has in this one and the previous book as well. And I don't go into Millie Johnson wanting serious content, I want the fluffy romance, so that's I think why I'm struggling with them at the moment. I probably will continue reading them because, as I said, I do like her writing, but if we continue in this trajectory then I might have to step away, which is sad to say. Saying that, I did like the sister relationship and how that evolved. Obviously they don't really know each other, so over the course of this book they are exposed to each other more, so their relationship evolves and they become more like sisters rather than like strangers. And it does have some darker themes that you might need to check trigger warnings for. And obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning, I now have a child, so this looks very much at the impact of parents on their children, and that was eye-opening. Even though I knew it, it was a bit frightening to read this book so close to my due date and things, because the parents in this are not great, like really not great, and the mum is a very cold lady who obviously has had a lot of negative impact on these 3 women, and it's, you know, stretched throughout their whole lives. So with my impending arrival at the time, it did make me think a lot, so I'm hoping, I'm praying that I don't, you know, completely mess up my child, hopefully. I mean, I'm not going to be like the mum in this book, there is no way. So, but yeah, if you've ever been interested in Millie Johnson but romance isn't your thing, maybe this is the one to try. But for me, as I said, I want the romance, so that was Together Again by Millie Johnson. The next book I read wasn't actually picked by the random number generator because I decided to read Five Survive by Holly Jackson. I picked this up about 3 days before in a charity shop, saw it spanned over 8 hours and decided to read it in a day. So there is a video, it's either been out, if it is I'll link it up above, if not it's coming soon, where I vlogged this reading experience, which was pretty fun. And obviously more of my thoughts on this will be in that video. This is following a group of 6 teenagers as they are driving from their northern part of America down to sort of more like the Florida area for spring break. They're all in an RV. They end up in the middle of nowhere, stranded, no signal, and then suddenly a sniper starts shooting at their van, car, vehicle. So Holly Jackson is the author of the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. I have to say it like that because I always struggle with it, and this was her next release. She does write a good thriller, does our Holly Jackson. It was twisty and things like that, but I would say that the twists it's one of those ones where I knew it, but like straight, like right before it was going to happen, rather than like pages and pages and pages before. So although it wasn't a complete shock or surprise, it was still enough for me to enjoy it that way, and it is quite a pacey thriller. It did take me quite a while to warm up to the characters. Certainly our main character Red, she has a very scattered way of thinking which I found very difficult to follow at times, and that's probably one of its biggest downfalls for me, was the characters in that, and the fact that our sniper tells them that he knows there's a secret and he wants that revealed, but they spend so much time trying to escape, which is fair enough, rather than trying to work out the secret that he might want, that I got a bit bored of those escape plans and would have wanted more of the secrets, because that's where the reveals were. And I would say that the ending felt a little bit flat for me, but as I said, there are more thoughts on this in that video, which has either been released or not. It's coming. But yes, Five Survive by Holly Jackson. I had a fun reading experience, which hopefully you've seen or will see soon. And then the last book that I read in February was Caraval by Stephanie Garber, which I read on my Kindle. Originally my random number generator actually picked this book, which is 1000 Stars on You by Isabel Broom, but I was like 5 days off my due date, so didn't feel like a physical book was going to be the best bet. So I regenerated and it picked the Caraval book, which I was glad about because I have wanted to read it for a while. I have the whole series on my Kindle, so this is the first book. This is following Scarlett, who is living in an island with her controlling father, and one thing that she has always wanted to do and really wants to do is take part in Caraval, which is like a game with magic and stuff. Obviously that happens and she goes for that, so most of the book is based somewhere else in this sort of magic game, which was fun. I found it a bit hard to actually rate this book because I essentially read 2/3 of it, maybe a little bit less, whilst in labour. So I was in labour overnight, and I basically paced up and down to have my contraction, and then in the moments between them I stood, swayed and read Caraval largely. So it's hard to rate that experience because my brain wasn't totally there because I was contracting at the same time, but I was very glad to have a book to just absorb myself in, and thus ignoring what was going on momentarily during that. I did enjoy the whole sort of magical game concept of it. I thought that was fun, and the way that it was written was entertaining. My child is waking up, so I've got to be quick, and the cliffhanger at the end has made me want to continue with the series, so spoiler for March, that's coming. It was very easy to follow in the small chunks that I had, which was helpful, and obviously the intrigue of it kept me distracted. I'll come back to you because I need to go and sort my child out. Alright, sometime later. Where was I? Caraval. So the main character is Scarlett. I wasn't always sure of her thought process or her decision making, I guess. I kind of understood it, but also it kind of frustrated me, and it did grate a little bit. And I know people absolutely adore Julian, or at least I think I've seen that on the internet, but I wasn't always 100% sure on him. But together I liked them. So yeah, that was sort of my experience with Caraval, which I'm not sure I can fully review it for you due to the circumstance that I read most of it, and then obviously I finished it off in the first week or so of Eloise's life, so again, not a good solid run at it. But as I said, I enjoyed it enough that I'm continuing with the series. So those were the 5 books that I read in February. Weird month, and March is no different. Don't expect another long book video from me. I think January is going to be the biggest month that I'm going to have this year, but hopefully, as you can see from the shelf, I have a lot of reading to do, and I hope to sort of pick up my mojo a bit as she grows and gets older. But yes, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've got any comments about the books that I read, please put them in the box below. And again, if you're interested in anything that's coming up, which even I'm a bit baffled about what that's going to be, but click that subscribe button. I'm sure there's going to be something. As I said in the last vlog that I uploaded, I am only doing Sundays now. For the time being, Wednesdays feels like a step too far at the moment. They may come back, but currently it's just Sundays. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.